All right, everyone, welcome. We're going to get started. Good to see you. Right now, I think because we have a small enough group, rather than doing the chat, I'd invite you to introduce yourself, what your role is within Interact, and what district you're in, briefly. Jody, do you want to go first?
Sure. District 5020 in the Nanaimo, Lanceville area, and I'm an advisor.
Thank you. Gary, you want to go next?
Sure. I've kind of been dragged in here under false pretenses. Does anyone know Lane Calvert?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. I'm in District 5320, Fountain Valley Rotary Club. 5320 is in Orange County. I'm Gary Hickman. We had some funny things with our Interact issue. Our advisor to our local club, there's some bona fide valid family issue type things, illness in the family. So she's been dropping away. So Lane has said, why don't you attend this thing and maybe we can get you to do some work with it. I am familiar enough secondhand, but I'll sit back, relax, and we can all chat.
Sounds good. Thank you, Gary. Carol, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Carol Lee, and I am the New Generations Director for my Woodinville Rotary Club. So I've been the Rotarac advisor for 5 years, and we just launched, 2019, a North Shore Interact Club, which is community-based, and they are doing phenomenal. So very happy to be here to represent our Interact Club.
Thank you, Carol. Carol's from District 5030 with me. We've never met, but I hear wonderful things. And Riley has been serving with us, who is a phenomenal Rotaractor. Sherry, would you like to introduce yourself? We're looking at name, district, and role.
Hi, my name is Sherry Hauk. I'm from 5110 in Eugene, Oregon. I am brand spanking new. As the faculty advisor role at my high school. I've interacted with interactors as a college and career center counselor, but I'm very, 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 very new. And I have a puppy crawling all over me, so my camera may stop. So you guys
no
don't
worries.
have to deal.
Welcome. Bob,
Thank
would you like to introduce yourself? Bob, would you like to jump in? All right, Bob, I'm going to skip you. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm here. I didn't hear you. Did you want me to go ahead and introduce myself?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Bob Holbert. I'm with District 5160. I live in Woodland outside Sacramento, California. And I was an advisor for Community Interact Club for about 3 years, a community-based, and then was club president. And then we started a school-based, and I was asked mid-year to fill in for the duration of this year as a co-advisor. And so I think our main issue right now is that the club was going strong. And then of course, with the pandemic, we went to virtual, and the active membership was dropped to about 5 students. And so we really are in a rebuilding mode right now and looking for new ideas to get things rolling for next year and getting strong again. So
great. Thank you, Bob. Brian, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure.
Name, role, district.
Yep. So I'm Brian Dunkel. I am actually the Youth Services Chair member of the board for my club, which is the Rotary Club of Honolulu. District 5000, which is the district we're in, covers the entire state of Hawaii. There are actually a couple of other folks, I don't think they're in this particular breakout room, that are from my district that are on this session as well, who were part of the RILA Planning Council for this year's virtual RILA, which we had a couple of weeks ago at the end of February, which went really, really well. We had a lot of good planning that went into it, a lot of good technology support behind it. And so, we have a very excited group of people from that who are now sort of looking to expand other parts of our youth focused universe as far as Rotary is concerned. So I'm going to go back on no camera so that I can put my phone down because my arm's getting tired.
No problem. Thank you, Ryan. And then I think we have Jody and Maddie left. Would one of you like to introduce, or actually Jody, you did. So Maddie, I think you're the last one.
Hey everyone, yeah, sorry, my camera's off. It's really bright right now. So I'm from 5080 in Rossland, British Columbia. Sorry, I can't remember everything we were.
Name, district, and what your role is in Interact.
Oh, right. So I don't have like a role right now. We're just trying to restart up our club. Unfortunately, it folded a couple years ago just to lack of members. Our area is pretty small. So I was a former president of our Interact club, and now I'm part of the local Rotary. So I'm just trying to get that going again, hence getting the member recruitment. Thank you.
Thanks for joining, Maddie. Guys, this is the success story here. We have an Interact president who's a Rotarian. So to kick us off, do you mind sharing maybe in the chat, what is the one thing you want to get out of this session? What is it that you want to learn about membership development? I heard some ideas, you know, the turnover that's occurred, restarting, some connections with other programs and how we can maybe work those youth programs together to build interest.
Well, while my dogs are quiet for the moment, maybe I'll jump in and respond.
Yes.
I've been kind of a step removed from all of this, but I've been in my club now since what, 2003, 2000, somewhere in there. And during my time in my club, we have had sponsored Interact clubs at the same high school. And it's like we go through these cycles. All of a sudden we have an Interact club. We got the right student, we got the right faculty advisor, we got all of that. And that goes for one school year. The next school year, it kind of fritters away. Then if there's dead, then we get another Interact club. And it's that same combination, I think, my sense, is you get the right student who really wants it. You get a faculty advisor who's willing to give up some time to do it. You get some administrators willing to set aside a room, whatever. But I don't know, maybe the rest of you get the same thing. It's like it has this life thing where, boom, it jumps up, it does great stuff, all that, and it falls down. And then there may be a year of nothing. And we're in one of those quiet spells now. We had a great faculty advisor last year. She decided to have a baby. It was more important than staying with Interact. And so we kind of lost her. And then the club frittered away. So we're now trying to restart things up again. So
anyone, does this resonate with anyone? Does anyone have ideas about or are you also experiencing the cycle?
Yeah.
I think we definitely had that over in our club as well. But I don't know if it was faculty as much because we had a really awesome teacher who was also a Rotarian who was doing it, but definitely student participation. I found like that, yeah, like that big curve where we would have a great year of tons of students who were really interested. And then it was like me begging all my friends to come join.
Sounds like this also resonates for Cherie. Jody?
Yes, same with our clubs. We were huge and now we're nothing almost.
Has anyone found that this is a result of the pandemic, or is this just a consistent across the board? There's going to be waxing and waning.
From my perspective, that cycle was established, is that the word? We observed that before the pandemic started. And I'm thinking back just a couple of years, and we had a stunning year one year. And someone who was a member of our club had 3 daughters, 2 of whom were at the high school, and both were very active. And it's just like they just bubbled the whole thing up. It just exploded into life and activity. And now those 2 girls are in college. They're not there. And so I think sometimes it's the magic of finding the right student who's popular, active, interested. And then the rest of the club, you know, the interactors get pulled along with it. That's been my sense.
Carol, I think I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I want to jump in here because the pandemic actually worked in our favor. So what we did was we partnered with the local YMCA in our local area. And they originally started a teen leadership board, and we worked with them to launch our North Shore Interact Club. Well, the pandemic hit, the Y shut down, their advisor got laid off, and our kids were kind of in limbo. So I'm thinking I'm going to work with that YMCA advisor, help her kind of nurture this new club, and then everything got shut down. Well, the board reached out to me and our Rotary Club, and we jumped in and reconnected in a deeper way. And the club has exploded. So we went community-based. We represent all 5 high schools in our school district. We have an 8-member executive board. They did, I don't know, probably a dozen projects, a dozen service projects. We've done tri-club projects with our Rotary Club, our Interact Club, and our Rotaract Club. And our first event was a Halloween food drive back in October. They posted on social media and we had 70 members recruited immediately. It was insane. And they continue to push out and put out new programs, new events. The funny thing is the YMCA is restarting their teen leadership board. And my board FaceTimes me and I said, well, do you guys want to go back to the Y? And they said, are you kidding? There's no going back. Ever since we connected with Rotary, our club has gotten 100 times better. So they are on a trajectory that is like insane. It is exciting, it is engaged. And if anything, the pandemic helped because everybody's on social media, their peers. And they just jumped on, and we are looking to even stronger year this coming year.
Any questions for Carol? I have a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about how the Rotaract Club in your area, so you have a community-based Rotaract that's restarting, how does your Rotaract Club help bridge or augment what's going on with the Interact?
Well, we are very proud to have a tri-club service Rotary family. And so the Rotaract Club, I would say, yeah, it's relaunching as a community-based club, but we have a strong board. So they were involved in selecting and interviewing for the Interact exec board. So we share everything. We share Rotary events with each other. We share Rotaract events with each other. We co-serve with Interact. I mean, we're really tightly engaged. And I think that's been helpful because it's been harder to engage during this time. But when you take all 3 clubs and you engage, it creates a community and a tighter bond for service.
Any other questions?
We also have a contingency plan for next year because we got all juniors, right, in our Interact Club. And I heard Gary say it kind of wanes and kind of goes up and down. So we're thinking ahead. We're going to make sure our board has all age groups, all grades represented from all the high schools, so we can get different high school representation. So that one of my board members said, we want this club going strong 20 years from now. So they're already thinking ahead to make sure that this legacy that they've built is going to continue on. So it has been the biggest blessing of my year because through a difficult time for everyone, all of us went through a difficult year, that they've been like a shining light. And I'm happy to share and brag on them because I think they're incredible young leaders. And I tell them up front, I have an ulterior motive. I'm building Rotarians for life. So they know in advance.
By the way, I will still plug, I've never met Carol before. I've never even heard your name, Carol, honestly, but I've heard of your chain, and Riley, who is one of the Rotaractors, she got involved before she moved back to the area. So she moved out for work, reconnected, stay connected with her Rotaract community. And so she was already involved as it was restarting and is super excited about the connection between Interact being a near peer to the high school students as they're starting their college careers and then also being connected with professional Rotarians as she's continuing to build hers, and she's 25. So I would highlight this as one of the things that I'm seeing are the clubs that are doing well have, I'm going to call them near peers, bridging, young leaders who are able to connect and stay, straddle both the professional world, and they're still close enough to the high school students to remember kind of the challenges that they have.
Yeah, Riley was on my charter Rotaract board. So she's my girl. She's been a Interact president, a Rotaract president. She's joining our new relaunching Rotaract team as New Generations chair. So she will work with me to mentor the interactors.
Awesome.
She's
Maddie, I know you disappeared from the screen, but I would love to hear what you think, having been an Interact president, does this sound reasonable? Does this give you ideas? What are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm just moving my location. Okay, sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, sorry, can you just repeat that? My parents just walked in the front door.
Oh, no worries. So hearing about the Tri-Club model, having alumni of the Interact who are intricately involved with continuing the Interact, does this give you ideas? What do you think of how this sounds?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think for, people to, you're right, like hear those stories of people going throughout the various, the Interact to the Rotaract to the Rotary. I think it can be inspiring. I found that like our biggest issue was, it wasn't necessarily, trying to sell Rotary, but I feel like it was almost more like the time commitment was really like, maybe like the biggest deterrent for everyone. That was like what I noticed with a lot of people, and it wasn't like cool in that sense. I feel like a lot of people thought it was kind of like joining clubs wasn't the thing to do. I don't know how it is now. So I don't know necessarily if that was like a big selling point, trying to get the long term.
Mm-hmm. What do your meetings look like? So I'm thinking about the Interact in my town. They have weekly programs with weekly speakers, just like our Rotary clubs do, but they shorten the format of the speaker program. So you don't necessarily have in half an hour, you have maybe 15 minutes. What kind of, how are you engaging? And I think about, Carol, you've talked about how you kind of went offline. Like, what do meetings look like right now?
So we meet every week on Wednesdays. We have maybe 60 people show up, kids show up. We start with opening announcements about any upcoming events. If we have a speaker, they come in literally for 5-10 minutes and they do some spiel or they share their screen. And then we break up into committees. So we do breakout rooms and we jump into committee-based breakout groups, kind of like this, how we jumped into a workshop. And they work on hands-on projects. So sometimes these committees are so huge, we have subcommittees, sub-breakout rooms, like 20 breakout rooms, from one committee. It's crazy. And these kids are sharing screens, they're sharing documents. I mean, they're so tech savvy that they just maneuver through all of this. And then we come back around for closing comments, kind of a recap. And our executive board meets 15 minutes earlier before the general membership and 15 minutes at the end to kind of recap. So it's totally different. It's a very working committee meeting, and we rotate committees every quarter. So every 3 months we shake it up and we put kids in different committees for new projects.
What is the total time commitment?
It's usually like 11 to 2 hours, once a week meeting.
Wow.
Do you, if I can ask?
Yeah, jump in.
Obviously, you're meeting now in a virtual environment, some kind of Zoom or something like that, and doing it successfully. And the kids seem to be good with it. Do you think the model of virtual meetings should continue after the pandemic, after everyone can go back to school?
Yes, they are starting a hybrid go back to school soon in our district. And we will continue to meet virtually because of the size of the club and because they're in all different high schools. So we've been serving in person and meeting virtually. And I think we'll continue that model.
Makes sense.
Judy, I just saw you joined. Do you want to introduce yourself, name, district, and interact role?
My name is Judy Foote and I'm from Sacramento and I'm a club advisor. And our Interact is not meeting this year because our schools will not allow it.
Mm.
So I'm really worried about starting again in the fall.
Makes sense. We've heard that from a couple of people.
Too many seniors on my board.
Too many seniors problem, yes. All right, so I'm recapping because Judy, you just joined. We talked about a little bit that there's this kind of, I'm going to say wave. We have peaks where there's lots of engagement. There's that persuasive advisor or student who, you know, brings the club forward, and then they graduate or they leave, and then interest drops off. How to manage that? We've been hearing from Carol a little bit about in the northern end of District 5030, north of Seattle, a tri-club model where Rotaract, Interact, and Rotary are all working together, all on a community-based. So community-based Rotaract, community-based Interact covering 5 high schools, and how they're doing that online. I think we've heard consistently that if things weren't already bad, you know, just because of the natural wave that the pandemic has made things more complicated. So a lot of people are in the position of trying to restart a club or engage students and advisors. Did I capture that, guys?
Thank you.
I'm impressed. That was an excellent summary. That was really good.
I'm just looking, Cherie, you mentioned that you're stepping into this now. What are you thinking of what you're hearing? How does this orient with the kind of idea that you had for, you know, the end of this year, starting the next school year?
This is so very, very helpful. As I said in the chat, I'm the advisor for 3 clubs because I'm a crazy woman. And we're having the same problem with the other 2. And so I can use this for many things, and I really appreciate it. And we're seeing the same thing, the exact same thing. It's cyclical.
Mm. Does anyone have a new question or a new idea that they'd like to propose discussion on?
So I'd like to echo the notion that it's very cyclical. I actually, when I stepped into the role of youth services chair, I had a number of folks from years ago who were asking me, so what's up with our Interact clubs that we used to have here, and what's going on with the Rotaract clubs over there? And so, you know, my experience, and it's not limited to just the Rotary experience, of course, is that these kinds of things generally tend to be very much dependent on, you know, individuals who give it the necessary attention on both sides. So from the Rotary side and from the school side. And so, you know, when you have people who are really interested, really involved, you have good, you have good things happening. And when you don't, things kind of wane, and you have to kind of be willing to adapt in those situations. One thing that I have been trying to do, although I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to actually put it into place, but was one of the things that as youth services chair, so I sort of pay attention to all of the things that are youth oriented. And I actually came into youth services not through any of the youth programs from Rotary International. I sort of found out about those afterwards, but rather because I was involved in the four-way test speech contest for high school kids that the Rotary Club of Honolulu does or did on a regular basis. And, you know, kind of struggling with finding folks at the high schools who would be interested in participating in that. You know, I started thinking, well, what about all of these other youth oriented programs that we have through Rotary, why are those not a part of this? So trying to look at it in a holistic way, getting high school students and middle school students involved in, as many of the different types of Rotary sponsored programs as possible, whether that's RILA, Interact, any of these other kinds of things like the speech contest. We also have a video contest that we sponsor in conjunction with a local television conglomerate type thing. So I'm wondering if anybody else has had experience with, trying to do Interact through other lenses that way.
Anyone have any thoughts on Brian's question? Connecting programs?
Well, Kate, as you know, with Riley, thank goodness she connected us with RILA. So we actually sent our 2 Interact co-presidents to RILA this year, which was excellent. So I'm thankful for Riley's looping us in and getting us in that.
Judy, it looked like you might say something.
Was that a virtual experience, your RILA?
Yes, we've had 2 virtual RILAs. So, and I should say, I have no Interact experience. There's 4 Interact clubs in my community, but I focus on RILA. And so what we have found, and I'm speaking from a RILA lens, is we have Interact students who go, and some of their clubs select them as like, if you were presidential material, it's an honor to be selected. And then from the RILA attendees, one of those will be president. So they've made it an incentive, that you get to go to this if you're working hard in the club. One of the things that we've seen is we have alumni who are coming back, and our alumni are often Rotaractors at their colleges, which may or may not be local. So they may be here in district, or they may be, for instance, one of my lead counselors is in Arizona, right? And so we do a lot of work online as well with our near peer facilitators. We've been able to recruit Rotaractors to serve because they want to know about this thing with the high school students. And then I'd say the other thing that's interesting is, I'm going to say we are a loose family program. So we have students who have come in, we've brought in Rotaractors as speakers, and the next year they might be a facilitator, and the next year they're helping identify students who should be going and connecting to the Interact. And we kind of let them pick whatever that is, because as they're evolving through their Rotary career, they're seeing the program from a different lens. And so that is one where currently we had someone who is now our Rotaract governor, so to speak, and she is less involved with us, but is bringing us information. Riley is one of our program leads. She is connecting us back with Interact clubs. And so we're sustained by that interaction across all of our programs. And I know Rotaract is not a youth program, but it is for our students who love Interact. It's where they often go. In some of our communities, they go and become Rotarians at 23, 22, and are welcomed into the Rotary clubs at that age. The issue being, how do they pay?
So Kate, I just want to say for us, we have RILA Vancouver Island and we've really promoted both a youth exchange and Rotaract and Interact at the RILA, and so that's helped. And we also sponsor, our club sponsors a Rotaractor. And so we pay for all of their fees and their breakfasts and stuff. So that helps bring that in too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm looking around. Bob, do you have any thoughts? Are we on target, or are we totally, not capturing what you wanted to talk about?
No, I think it's really good to be sharing. I'm inspired as I'm hearing people's thoughts. I'm also trying to process, because I'm thinking about kind of how to position our club for planning for next year. So kind of drawing on the ideas that have been shared about doing some brainstorming, thinking about some long-range planning, since we're now at a transition point. I was just thinking that we're sponsoring 2 students to go to our Camp Royal, which is our leadership training program, and that'll be virtual. And one is a sophomore boy at another high school here in town, and then a junior girl at the school where our club is. I'm thinking about how important it is to, neither of them is currently involved in Interact, so I'm seeing that they definitely should be positioned. You know, they're in key roles coming back from the training to help with the continuity and the planning for next year. I was also thinking about the importance of different players to bring together for a brainstorming session about, you know, what are some strategies. And so I've been taking some notes as I'm hearing people share about things that have worked in other places and how those might be, you know, adaptable for our area as well. I think the point about hybrid meetings continuing, I think there's real potential there. For instance, if it's physically based on one campus, if we then can make it hybrid for, you know, those on the other campus to be able to, you know, participate, you know, virtually too. And I think there's, you know, a lot of potential. It's kind of overwhelming and discouraging to think you're in a downturn. So it's important now to get a change of mindset and think about now, how do we bounce back? And, you know, because just as several of the others have said, I look back maybe 3 years ago, we had a very active club of anywhere 25 to 40 members. And, but it varies with the leadership. We're fortunate that we have a faculty advisor as well as a club advisor. So having an advisor who's on campus as a teacher, it makes a huge difference, I think. So, but he's very, very busy as well. So I'm looking at ways that we can support him, and then also bring in other, I have another potential advisor right now in our club who's willing to step in for next year. So he's not been involved. So I'm thinking about, you know, how do we get him, you know, in the right position. So, you know, I think it's beneficial in that regard. I appreciate people sharing ideas.
Thanks, Bob.
Kate, I would agree with Bob that it's important to engage people who are willing to step up and to consider, you know, virtually continuing forward to encourage more participation. And I would say also is to gather the right group of students that are passionate about service, that want to be involved in this relaunch or whatever it is when you're restarting a club, and using them as the leads on getting the word out and coming up with projects that are relevant for them. And then, you know, social media being even bigger now because we're all online is taking advantage of that as well.
Great points. I actually just recently learned that, so as we move to the engagement model for Rotary, our Interact students in many cases are leading the way because they track service hours for various school programs and the like. And so they're very incentivized to make the engagement module on Club Runner or DACDB work. And so again, they're a great resource for the rest of us who are still trying to figure that out. Wait, we just don't do attendance anymore. And they're very thoughtful about how to track, you know, the money, the hours, everything like that. Maddie, I saw you pop up with your camera. Do you have any other thoughts to share? By the way, we have 20 minutes, folks.
Yeah, no, I was just like, if like Carol, if you want to speak a little more just to some of like your recruiting strategies, because you were saying how you guys had that event that went really well, but you were saying like you advertised it on social media. Like, how did you kind of start reaching out to everyone?
Yes.
And can I pause you, Carol? I just want to welcome Naomi, who's joined us. Naomi, would you like to say hello or introduce yourself? Specifically, we'd be curious to know your role in Interact.
Well, aloha, and sorry I'm coming in late because it is just 7:30 in the morning here in Hawaii. So District 5000 Hawaii, I'm the district governor, And my role for Interact is trying to oversee the youth service committee and our Interact groups. We're having a challenge, a very big challenge with Interact because of the pandemic. Our schools are mostly distance learning. The schools are not allowing us to communicate with the interactors, but we are still trying to do a webinar series. So recruitment and membership is very important, and we're trying to get ready for next year with confirming that the clubs are still going to be operating next year.
Thank you for joining us. And
Hey,
welcome.
Naomi.
I'm going to turn it back to Carol because, to your point, Carol has a community-based Interact, so they, quite frankly, don't have to deal with the school district, and they are doing really well. And so I'm going to turn it back to you to ask the question or answer the question about how you're recruiting in this community environment.
I want to say an aloha to Naomi and also Brian. I am born and raised in Hawaii. So I'm actually going to put my personal email in the chat, because if any of you want to email me after the fact, I'll be happy to engage on this. This is my passion and my calling here, guys. I really love these kids. And anyway, back to the question on social engagement. So they have a very active Instagram presence. So we posted on stories and on the Instagram, and the kids just picked up and it blew up. They had this huge drive. Like, we're talking Halloween decorations, a photo booth. They did goodie bags. They said, come get candy, you know, and drop off food for the needy. And it was huge. So we posted on our Instagram, and all the kids that are bored and at home in the pandemic saw it and said, oh my gosh, I want to make a difference. I need hours for National Honor Society. I want to be connected with other youth. And so it's almost like just doing and being in action got us a lot of engagement out in the community for our members. And again, we had like 70 private messages after that one event. So from there, it just exploded. We next year, I have 6 out of the 8 exec board members that are going to be interviewing, applying, and doing live speeches in front of their membership and going up in front of a selection committee. They're going to apply for 2 co-president positions. So these are committed, engaged young leaders who want to continue serving in Interact, love the Rotary family. And we all have that, right? We all have the Rotary family. This is something you definitely can do, because if we can do this in a pandemic when everybody shut down, it is absolutely possible for this coming year for you to really ramp up and get this back into your districts.
So I heard Instagram. Do you use any other platforms, and who manages the content? Do you let the students manage it, or are Rotarians managing it?
The kids I'm finding in high school are not on Facebook. We might be, but they're not. So
Yeah, Facebook is for old people these days, unfortunately.
But I had them set up a Facebook account because they need to reach us. We're the ones supporting, we're the ones that can come to their drives. So they did jump in, but they primarily use Instagram. We set up and they built a website. So we have a website as well. And they use on Instagram, this is really cool. It's a link tree platform. So on Instagram, you can only put one link in your bio. So like the Facebook or the website or whatever link, you know, sign up to an event. But Linktree allows you to list several different links. So because they have multiple projects going on at once, they just list all their links on one.
Oh.
All right. Any other questions? I'm looking at who is not visible so I don't forget you. Jody, Cherie, Brian, do you have anything you want to add? Well,
So one other thing that occurred to me that has been something that I've noticed, again, sort of looking across various things, even outside of Interact, but in, you know, supporting youth service type things in general. One other way of sort of looking across is also sort of looking across multiple clubs, whether that's at the district level, and with Naomi here, you know, the the district level is well represented, but also like, individual clubs working together. Like for example, I am working together with the youth services chair for another club here in Hawaii to sponsor one of our Interact clubs. So we kind of share the responsibility of financially and morally supporting the folks at that Interact club. And that's helped a lot for both of us, I think. But it also can sometimes, I think, cause difficulties if you have clubs who are sort of the attitude, well, no, this is our high school. You guys shouldn't be in here.
Are you guys possessive of your high schools?
Some folks can be, yes.
I
Well,
will echo,
it's
our
one-
club doesn't actually sponsor any Interact clubs, but we co-finance our neighboring clubs who do. Carol.
I know it can be a challenge. We've tried to actually engage other Rotary clubs to support our Interact and even our Rotaract. But I find if you have a strong champion in your home club, it's actually easier to kind of move forward on things, to take that one champion that can advocate for the youth. However, community-based does make it a lot easier for us to gain momentum because we are not needing to abide by district rules. They're sort of free to serve and share and engage.
When you say district, do you mean school district or Rotary district?
Yeah, school district. We're very tied into the school district, but with the Interact Club, we are community-based, which makes it easier, I find. Even being tied into the YMCA initially was a bit of not a hindrance, but it puts you in a box. I mean, that's how the kids were telling me, the interactors. Wow, we didn't really do anything. They wanted to teach us lessons every time we met. Now we get to serve in action. And wow, that's what we want them doing.
I bet it's easier to do fundraising too, because I know our school has control and they won't let you do an entity like polio because it's not something they can see.
Yes, absolutely. And that held true for our Rotaract Club that was tied to the University of Washington, Bothell. We couldn't do fundraisers, but now that club is also community-based. So our two youth clubs are free, to fundraise and serve and engage much, much easier.
New thoughts. Thank you.
All right, we've got 10 minutes left. Do we want to continue on this question? Do we have other questions that we want to raise?
So I actually would have a follow-up question to Carol, I guess, but also to others. I'm very sympathetic to the notion of not being constrained by the requirements of a school district or a program like YMCA. But I also know that those restrictions are sometimes in place for very valid reasons, like, youth safety and that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering, how do you guys manage those kinds of things if you don't have something from the school district? I mean, do you have youth protection policies that you do yourselves, or what kind of stuff do you do on those fronts, given that you don't have those restrictions?
As Kate knows from District 5030, we have a pretty strong youth protection policy and program. So any of the advisors go through that background check and the youth protection, processes as outlined, and suggested by Rotary. So we do have that in place.
So you rely on the Rotary parts of that. Okay, that's good.
And I will give a plug for Mike Cloutier. We are next to District 5020 and our RILA program is shared. So we adopted the Youth Volunteer Management System at the same time as District 5020 and are moving forward with that. They're adding a module that allows us, right now it tracks our documents, it processes our interviews and references. It's all in one place. And my understanding is that they're going to be rolling out additional modules such as training and even participant training. So connecting participants so that they can get access to, for instance, reporting mechanisms and things like that through the system.
I'm sorry, could you tell me the name of that tracking system?
Sure. It
Meaning
is
I've
called
been looking for one.
Youth Volunteer Management. It is connected to the Yeah Hub, if I'm saying it right. So historically, Youth Exchange has used, almost all Youth Exchange in North America uses NIAN and Yeah Hub as their training and document retention screening programs. Youth Volunteer Management is for all the other youth programs of Rotary, built onto the same platform, and it connects and speaks to one another. So you can actually, if you're qualified, there's some additional requirements for Youth Exchange, but if you're qualified under Youth Volunteer Management, you can pull through that information. So you're not doing the same training module twice. You're not doing the same, background checks and references. Again, you can import that from the district-based Youth Volunteer Management. You could also do it at a club level, I'm sure, but it is built for district investment. And I believe it's $500 to get set up in the system. And then it's a $500 fee in subsequent years. And
Great,
our districts pay for that.
Okay, thank you so very much. That's very helpful.
Any other questions for our last 6 minutes?
Not a serious question, more like maybe it is inquiry. It seems to me that part of the problem we've run into, at least in our club in the past, is the school being upset with us using school facilities and being on campus. And with the virtual environment we're in today, that should overcome many of the hesitations that we hear from time to time from the local high school. Has anyone gotten any feedback on that or approached the local school where you say, hey, just give us a virtual presence, let us work it that way, and all you need to do is let the students sign on?
Our district permits the virtual meetings for all clubs, and we use the Rotary accounts for hosting on Zoom. But I'm also going to give a plug. I have heard Rotarians tell me that youth protection does not extend to online activities, which is crazy to me because we all know of the amazing, like if you've seen Chris Hansen on, right, we all know that things can go terribly wrong on the internet. And so that would be my only, we have to be very thoughtful about password protections, what information about our youth is placed on the internet. That's one of the biggest focuses, and especially if you're in the district that spans Canada, data protection and data rights is a huge part of this. So for instance, our RILA does not post pictures of our youth participants, or identifying information such that someone can find, who these people are. So just something to think about when you're hosting online or building websites or using social media. To some extent, they're free agents. They can engage on the internet, right? But just making sure you're thoughtful about that we're not disclosing their identities.
I have a question for Carol about that. What time do you meet as a community group?
So initially, Judy, we met in the evenings, after school. But some of the sports practices started opening up in our district. And so we have many that are involved in track and field or other activities. So we just recently switched to 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. But as the schools further open up, we have one of our board members getting involved in theater. So we are actually looking at switching it back to an evening time slot.
Yes, Naomi?
Our middle school RILA, they are meeting after their virtual RILA, and when they polled them, the kids want to meet on Sunday afternoon. So we're having a follow-up Toastmasters online Zoom meeting on Sunday, because that's when they want to meet.
I will add, when our RILA program, the bulk of it is on Sunday afternoons for 5 consecutive weeks. And when we asked our near peers and high school students when they wanted to meet, they selected the time of Sunday afternoons.
Wow.
But again, it helps if you ask them.
That's a good point.
We have a
Crazy talk.
an approach, and I think we see this in our youth programs in District 5030 is youth led. So we ask them what they want. We ask them how they want to organize, how they want to meet, what times work best for them, what's important to them in their peer groups, and let them really drive with Rotarian oversight and support. And what I've seen is that the empowerment of youth to make those decisions and be people of action, I mean, they have the passion and the skill set if we get out of the way. So that's been really helpful for us, is to let them lead.
I have a brief question. This is Sherry again. Could I get your input on what the best practice you think is for the time for meetings? I'm really kind of confined because of my school and my school district of when I can have student meetings, and our lunch period is only half an hour, which is almost nothing when you let kids get food, which I have to do.
I'm going to say something, and I'm going to let Carol speak, but the biggest thing I hear is they don't want programs. Like the Rotary model of sitting for an hour and having a meal and a program does not work for them. They want to just roll up their sleeves and do things. Like in that 30 minutes, whatever time that they have, is, come with an agenda and get things done.
Mhm.
Carol, what do you see? Is that similar?
Most definitely. I mean, they hop into our Rotary virtual meetings from time to time, and that's always fun because, us Rotarians, we love seeing our youth. But most definitely their meetings, they want to do something productive. The other tool that we use is GroupMe. So it is a messaging system, and in that it's built where you can do polls. So Kate was mentioning engage your youth and empower them. So they just do their own polls. Hey guys, which time do you want to meet? Or can anybody bring an extra long table for today's drive? Because we actually have a drive today. So I have to go to that after this conference. So, they know the technology probably better than we do and can navigate that easily. But GroupMe has worked very well for us to reach out and connect with our members, get poll results, check on preferred meeting times, update on projects coming up. So I'd recommend that for your clubs.
Yes, Naomi?
Real quick, one of our Interact clubs is a private school. They have 125 members. They meet for 10 minutes during lunch. 10 minutes.
Wow. That is some efficiency. And I will say at RILA, the students have asked me to make them co-host or to program polls while we're talking so that they can get immediate feedback from their peers. They use all these tools regularly, more than we do. All right, thank you, everyone. It looks like we are headed back to the main session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Good meeting.